Hello, my name is Hugo and this is another edition of Hugo's Desk. I've been beta testing Elara from the Foundry. The folks at the Foundry hooked me up with the beta access, really. So I just wanted to show you my first impressions. Now, this video is not going to be a full review. I am going to review Elara for the next few weeks. And of course, I'm doing a real production on Elara, testing a real production. I'm currently doing a cinematic, directing a cinematic, and I'm trying to go through a few shots through Elara just to put Elara to its spaces. So I will have a full review very soon, but now I just wanted to give you guys first impressions of how it works. So as you can see here, Elara, for you guys that don't know, is basically the new product from the Foundry that allows you to work from a cloud-based system. So that means you can basically log in to applications, visual effects applications, including the Foundries and third parties, and you can log them in through a web browser. That means that you don't need a powerful machine, you don't need anything at all except an internet connection. So here's a browser. This is a Safari browser, and I'm currently running this on my Mac Pro. As you can see here, I put these three things here on the corner just to help you and guide you to see the stress on the system. So this is my CPU and this is my memory. At the moment I have 64 gigs and I have pretty much 45 gigs free. I only have really wired 4 gigs, and that's really just the system, really. So ultimately I almost have nothing running on this machine except Safari. As you can see, also the bandwidth at the moment is 0 KB and 0 upload KB, and this is important because I wanted to show you how Elara stresses the internet, of course. And I'm also running, just so you guys know, I'm running this video not in 4K, although the machine can run 4K. I'm actually running at 2.5K, really, 2560 by 1440. Reason I'm doing that is because my recording software for the screen can't really handle the 4K recording in real time. So at the moment I'm recording this screen and it's playing back at 30 frames per second. It's important as well to show you because I want you to see an actual accurate representation of how much lag or no lag you would have on Elara. I kind of want you to see for your own, with your own frame rate, actually how it would work if you were on a machine. I can't show you 60 frames per second, but at least I can show you 30. So this is the normal browser, like I said, and the way it works is you basically log into your system. So eventually when Elara launches this year, you'll have a login, you'll have a password. So you log in and you get greeted by the first homepage, which is basically the applications you can run. At this moment, of course, the Foundry is getting more applications on board. You can run Maya, Blender, Nuke, Mari, and you can do Caviar, you can do Modo, Mari as well. Sorry, I said that already. Nuke Studio. You can also do Gaffer, you can also do 3D Equalizer, Houdini, and File Browser. So this is mainly your main account. So if I go, for example, here, you can see that this is my account. My name is Hugo, and this is everything else, my company. And basically you can connect both Dropbox and Google Drive to your Elara system so that you can feed in files or also put them out into Dropbox again. In this case, I have only Dropbox connected. I don't really have Google Drive. And of course, then you have an organization. At this stage, it's my company, VFX Vault Limited, and you could make projects. You can assign other artists. Of course, at the moment, I don't have that here. These are the apps that I already told you about. Then you have your sessions, all the sessions that you've done that you would have online right now. They're not on at the moment. You have your quotas. Eventually, this is how they're going to charge the application, because you'll have quotas, you'll have how many users you've used, how many hours you've used. It would have all those kind of things. But these are things that will come right now. As I said, this is beta, so it might not be working fully every single section of the application. But let's get started by going into an app, and I'm going to basically show you how to bring in files and how to also open Nuke. So I'm going to launch Nuke, and the way that this works is that Nuke gets basically allocated to a machine. As you can see here, it's waiting for a host. It's allocating a machine. At the moment is a region on Europe at the moment, because that's the closest that I am on. This will be a server-based system, cloud-based to the location, the closest where you are. So usually it would use, a server rack machine on Google server, and it would be the closest to your location, so that you would have minimum lag and you would have minimum download upload problems. Now It could take a bit of time. Sometimes it depends really, like it could take 5, 10 minutes, 20 minutes. It really depends. It has to install the machine, it has to configure the machine to use nuke, it has to run all those tests. Once you do it once, the second and the third and the fourth time during the day, it's much faster. So this only really happens at this moment, that it takes a bit of time. So we'll wait, and I can then tell you how long it took the first time to log in. One thing I didn't tell you was that I'm running a business internet connection. I'm currently running 300 megabit a sec from version business, so I have a quite fast internet connection. But this has nothing to do with internet connection. This is actually the server allocating nuke for you. The other thing I'm also going to do, what you should also know, is that I can open as many sessions as I want at the same time. So I'm going to also open up a file browser. As you can see in here, it just shows you the entire applications that you're running at the same time. You can run Maya, Nuke Studio. As you can see, Nuke is already ready for you to open up. File browser is always also ready for you to open up. So I'm going to open, and you can also have multiple nukes open as well, by the way. And as you can see now, I'm going to open Nuke. It's going to open Nuke through my browser. And this is a full version of nuke running on my browser. And as you can see, I am still currently only using the 4.5 gigs of my memory, and I still have 51 free on my memory, so it's still nothing was touched really. And as you can see through my download upload, I basically have 30 kilobytes, 6 kilobytes, nothing really is happening. Now these peaks, or earlier on, I did the speed test just to see how fast I could get the system to go. So we'll look into these graphics a bit later. Also, from a processing point of view, you can see that I'm running basically 2%, nothing much more. Now, this is, of course, Nuke. I'm also going to open the file browser so that I can browse some files. Now, this is the only way you really have to bring in files in. So, for example, you have your folder to your user. You can see that this is what I locally have on Elara, which is on the cloud. And I already have a project folder here, and I also have a file browser. Now you can drag these out. Sorry, not there. Oh, by the way, this is all scalable. So, for example, if you have Nuke open here, as you bring in the you make the window smaller, it basically scales the window to a smaller, or if I bring it back to big, it basically automatically scales. So it's completely scalable to the resolution that you're using. So that's why I was saying you can run it in 4K if you want to as well. It's not a really big deal. But what I wanted to show you is that in here, you can basically drag the browsers if you want to have multiple browsers. For example, if you're copying files from one browser to the other, you could do that. So if I want, I can have a new tab. I also can have a new window. So these would always be the way you're going to browse files over. So for example, if I want to bring in a file to test, I can go in here to my file system. I then go into my Dropbox. So this is the location where I have my plugins, my the organization of the company, and also the Dropbox. Now, these are all my files from Dropbox. So this is, of course, reading live from Dropbox. So be aware that you're not really caching or syncing files. You're reading live. So at the moment, I'm logging into my folder for The Walking Dead, the trailer that I directed a few months ago. And this is my entire content. It's about 1.5 terabytes on the server on Dropbox. Now, inside my server, you can see I have a projects folder. So I'll give you an example. If I wanted, for example, to drag a sequence. So if I go in here and I go to outgoing, I'm just going to, so not outgoing, I'm going to just go to outputs, and I'm going to drag a shot really quickly just to show you an EXR. So I'm going to go into shot, let's see here. I'm going to open up, which shot is I? I'm going to open up a hilltop shot. I'm going to go into comp folder. I'm going to open up the EXR version 18. So I'm just going to drag that into my project folder. So now this is now copying 1.2 gigs. It's copying from Dropbox into Elara so that you can have it locally. Now, there's two ways of running this. You can either run Elara from Dropbox live. That means you're reading files on demand, or you can do this. You can copy them over. Now, of course, this is a very fast connection because, of course, it's a server with a very fast input. So it's going to take about a minute to drag 1 gig. While this is copying, I'm going to go back into Nuke. So as you can see, this is Nuke, and it is, of course, bare bone. It doesn't have any plugins. It doesn't have any gizmos. Those are things that will come later. At the moment, I still haven't really found a way to install gizmos or plugins. I know that this will come later, and Python will come later as well. This is, of course, all beta. But if you look at the preferences, you can kind of see that this machine is quite powerful. It has a solid state for caching, not very fast, but it's about 500 meg of caching. But it is quite big, and you can set your settings exactly like you usually do. This is, of course, vanilla. It also has a Tesla Key 80. If you guys don't know, that is pretty much the Rolls Royce of the NVIDIA cards. So it is one of the fastest NVIDIA cards out there. It's almost a 5,000 pound graphic card. So you can run that there. Also, you can kind of see from just looking at the cache here that this machine specifically has 36 gigs of RAM. Now, that's, of course, something that I hope the Foundry will fix, because I would hope to have more than that. Because just, for example, my local Mac Pro has 64 gigs, which is much, much faster. So, but with that in mind, I'm not going to really debate that right now, because this is just a beta. So I'm going to press OK here. And as you can see, if I go into my copy, it's still copying, but I have other files copied anyway. So I'm going to open up a read node. Now be aware, I'm on a Mac, and this is running on a Linux, I would assume. So the keyboards are all Windows based, so it's going to drive me nuts. So I'm sorry about that. So there's no way of you mapping Mac keyboards yet. That will come, of course. So you can see here, I have a couple of projects. I have a couple of links to The Walking Dead, which is the project I was talking. So this is live from Dropbox. So the way it runs is that if you want to go live with Dropbox, is you basically go in here, and let's, for example, assume that I am going to open that exact shot that I told you about. So if I go in here and I go into, let's see here. So if I go to the hilltop shot, well, I'm actually going to open another shot. Otherwise, the caching will replace it, and then it's always the same shot. So I'm gonna actually show another shot. Otherwise, we're gonna cache the same thing. So I'm gonna just load this on demand. So this is now an EXR sequence, which is an EXR sequence with about a gig. And I'm reading it live from Dropbox. I'm going to open it up. And there we go. So that's the one. Now, currently, I will want, because if I now play back this, as you can see, it's going to play back extremely slow, because it is playing back live from Dropbox. Imagine you're reading the files live without any caching intermediate. So usually Dropbox, how it works is you sync the file into your local machine, and then you work from there. So one of the ways you can fix that is you can actually make sure that nuke is set to caching mode. So for example, if you want, you can say, okay, I want to localize this, and I want to give it, let's say I'm going to give it 100 gigs of localization, and I'm going to say the localization is going to be on. I'm going to pause it when I start the scripts though, and then in here on my read node, I'm actually going to just say, okay, I want to actually cache this right now. So once I start doing that, I should start anytime soon. There you go. So you can see the yellow bar there. So now this is now moving the file from Dropbox into the local cache of this machine in Elara. Now, of course, the speed of it really fluctuates during the day. Nothing really happens. Like, it depends really. During the day, I sometimes get a really fast connection, sometimes I don't. I think it depends on the machine you get, and it depends on how many people are using these servers. So, but as you can kind of see through here, I still haven't even scratched the surface on my peaking. I should have really reset these peak modes, but if you look at my internet peaking, you can kind of see that I've been staying for the last hour on pretty much on the download. I've been staying on 1, 10, 13, 15 gigabytes. I haven't even reached 1 meg since we've started this session. So, and you see, this is a bit slow, of course, because it is driving through Dropbox. So let's leave it open. At the moment, then that other shot already copied. So I'm going to actually copy that shot in to show you the difference. So now I'm going to read this shot. Now this shot is not going to go through Dropbox. It's going to actually be read live. So I'm going to, I actually forgot where I copied it. So I copied it into projects, okay? So this is Hugo projects. This is my folder at Elara. I'm going to go into projects, and this is the 1 gig sequence I've copied. So I'm going to copy it in. Now this one is running live on the machine. So that means when I play it back, it does play back much faster, as you can see. I kind of get about 10 frames a sec. That's kind of the solid state speed for this EXR. Once it caches, it plays in real time. So now it's playing in real time at 24 frames per second once it caches. So I think this is something that I hope that we can get these machines with, having maybe a RAID system, maybe a RAID 1, a RAID 0, so that the caching is faster to play back, because at the moment, and so as you can see, this one right now you start to see the stress on the system. So you see, I'm playing back this video. I'm supposedly running at the 24 frames per second. As you can see, it is slightly choppy. I'm running at a 100% one-to-one. It's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. At the moment, I'm reaching a download of about 5 megabytes, which is really cool, actually, uploading 100 kilobytes only. So this is really good. It's like just like the Foundry has advertised. Pretty much, if you can run 4K Netflix with HDRI, you can run this. And as far as I can see, playing back this in real time, like you see here, it is not going to be as good as playing it back on my SDI system. And it's not going to be as good as playing it back on my machine, because you see, you kind of lose some frames. But you have to understand, this is running on a browser. This is not even on your machine. This is literally running on another server, and I'm only looking at it through my browser. And as you can see from it, I pretty much have almost no use on my CPU, and I have literally still my entire 50 gigs free, and I have this cached on my system. So, of course, I think there's still improvements to be done, of course, because I would wish that it would play back in real time. And of course, if I have the window smaller, you can see that it plays back in real time. But I think it's a really good advance. I'm really impressed by this, by the way. So I'm going to leave these two caching here. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to actually open up another nuke. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to launch yet another nuke license. So as you can see, this is the nuke, the first one I had, which I've been running for 11 minutes. I had then the file browser, which has been running for 11 minutes as well. And I'm going to open another nuke. So as you can see now, the nuke's open much faster. I'm going to open this up, and now this is a brand new nuke where I'm going to open up something a bit more complicated. So I've prepared this script before because I've brought this. I brought the script not locally to the machine, but I relinked the shot, and it just has to cache. So I'm going to open up a full shot from the Walking Dead trailer that I directed a few months ago. I'm basically just going to go in here to, let's see here, I'm going to go, where is it? It's projects, Walking Dead, sequences, Katana. So if I go here to Katana, I can open that up. And now this is a live script from a shot that I did. And once it caches from Dropbox, because I'm running it live from Dropbox, it will run in real time like if it was localized. Now, while I wait for that, I'm going to go back to the other nuke just to see how that's going. I'm also going to, why not? I can also check Twitter while I'm doing that. So I'm just going to open up Twitter. I'm going to just see if anyone else has any notifications for me, seeing what's trending, while I'm actually just waiting for all those things to load up. Yep. And now I can go back to my nuke. So this is a full script. I also have on this one, you can see almost everything is cached. This one is already cached. Of course, this one is much faster because it cached locally from the solid state into Elara's machine. This one is doing it from Dropbox Live. So I'm going to now go back into this nuke. Now this nuke here, which is a full script. Oh, sorry. Here I am again. I'm opening. I'm clicking on the wrong button. I'm so used to a Mac laptop, so I get really confused with the Windows keys. That's going to be one of my biggest problems, I think. So as you can see, the files are all here, but they're not cached. I'm just going to go ahead and just say that I want to update all of them. I'm not going to pause them. I'm actually going to cache them all. And this is really, you know, one of the ways that you can work. Like, you could do this, you could work live from Dropbox, And while you're waiting for the files to cache, you can just go and get a coffee. It's always good to get a coffee anyway. But it shouldn't take too long. These shots have been loaded on this script before. So as you can see, this is a very complicated shot, and you can already kind of experience a little bit of lag. And I think it also has to do with the fact that I'm running another nuke. I'm running actually 2 nukes at the same time through the browser. As you can see from my graphic here, it's not going very low. So, but this is a quite complicated shot. And I'm just going to show you how fast these scripts are. So this is the full shot. I'm just going to look at it at the bottom here. And so this is the entire shot being processed. Keep in mind this shot is a quite complicated shot with a lot of scanline renders, with a lot of initialization and a lot of things happening. And it's also like a fully 3D projected system. So as you can see here as well, this is now all running through the OpenGL. And now this is not the OpenGL of my computer. This is the OpenGL projection system from using the NVIDIA K60. So it's a very powerful OpenGL system. Now, as you can see, you do have a bit of lag when I'm trying to rotate. I am going to go ahead and I'm going to close this because I don't really need the file browser anymore. I already showed you this. I'm also, as you can see, as long as I close the file browser, it immediately closed. I'm also going to just show you really quickly here. So this is now the live video that I've cached from Dropbox. So once the file is cached once from Dropbox, then you kind of get it immediately. And as you can see here, I'm running it in real time now, 1:1 at 100% at 24 frames per second. This is the actual final render. And as you can see, it doesn't run really in real time, but it does run in real time if you make it a bit smaller. So I think ideally this is really cool if you have artists working on a bit less complicated shots for the moment. I think at least until this entire thing gets a bit more in tune. I'm going to close nuke, so I'm not going to save, and it's going to close that tab. And as you can see, if you go back here, you're going to see that one of these nukes is going to close soon. So I have I'm going to close that nuke, and I only have one open. So the second one would be the one I'm going to open. So I'm going to close the first one. It's going to now close that one and only open that one. And now I'm only running this nuke here. And so ultimately, it is still not as perfect as if you would run live on the machine. You see, because you can see that there's a bit of a lag when you're in the 3D system, but it's still way better than the team viewer. Like, it doesn't even compare to a team viewer. And as you can see, if I go through my script here, I'm a pretty fast nuke operator, so sometimes, of course, this gets a bit slower to my taste, because this is a pretty complex shot. But you can see here that this is my matte painting. I'm running my matte painting. This is a 4K matte painting. I have all my layers in my matte painting here. I then go into my sky here. This is kind of my sky setup. And you can kind of see that you can kind of like color correct everything, and it runs really fast. It's quite responsive. I can kind of then continue. I go into my 3D system here. This is my first scanline render that I'm rendering. I then have my first merge, and you can kind of see that it's pretty responsive. And of course, it's super fast rendering. Now, just to give you an idea, this entire thing, I'm going to go on the very bottom here, and I'm going to render this. So I'm just going to check if it's actually already rendering to the correct location. Yeah, it is. So if I now decide, I'm just going to version this up because it's version 8, already rendered version 8. So I'm going to just say, okay, so I'm going to want to do, oh, sorry, here I am again. You see, I clicked Command C, of course, because I'm a Mac guy. Sorry about that. But I am going to do Control C, like a normal human being, and I'm just going to make here a new render. So it's going to be test, like everyone loves the word test. And I'm going to do Control V, and I'm going to make a version 9 in here, and then I'm going to save, and I'm just now going to render this. And so I'm going to render the entire shot. 75 frames. Now I'm going to render. So now this is going to render locally on the Elara machine. Of course, Elara system will also have farm dedicated machines as well. Now, this is a really complicated and complex shot. At the moment, it's saying about... I already did this before. It took about 15 minutes to render. Just to give you an idea, well, it took less. I think it took 15 minutes before. Just to give you an idea, this exact shot on my Mac Pro with 12 cores, 64 gigs of RAM, took about 45 minutes. So this machine is much faster than my Mac Pro, of course, because I only have 12 cores. I'm not entirely sure how many cores this machine has. I'm assuming it has more than 12. But it is a beast. It's really fast. And keep in mind, I can run it on any laptop. I don't really need to run it on my machine. I could just open up my MacBook Air and run it through there. And as you can see, I still have 46 gigs of RAM. I actually could open Nuke and continue working in my own local Nuke while this is opening. And the cool thing about this is that while this is rendering, I could just go ahead in here and say, okay, well, while that's rendering, I'm going to open an entire different Nuke, which will be set on a different machine, and I can just continue working. And that's the cool thing, because then I could just continue working and I can just have multiple nukes. I'm really not sure how the Foundry is going to fix this, though, because otherwise people will just open multiple nukes all the time. But I'm assuming you'll be charged by machine. You'll probably be charged by those kind of things. But you see, if I now go in here and just open up another script, let me just open up one here that I had, which was a test. Just gonna go into my tests here. I had a caching I had a playback test, which is a couple of clips from my short film that I directed last year called Oak Lake. So these files are not local. They are in Dropbox as well. So I have to, of course, cache them. And I'm gonna do so. I'm just waiting for it to wake up. For some reason, it's and you can see this one is still going. It's 10 minutes to go. I'm just waiting for it to wake up. I'm now going to say localize everything, not pause. I've already localized this once, but I've localized it weeks ago, so I'm not entirely sure if the files are still here. They're probably not. As I can see, I don't think they are, because they're not cached. So they're running live on Dropbox, which means it's going to take a while, because these are 4.5K plates from the Urza Mini Pro, so they are really heavy. But let it cache a bit. But as you can see, this render is completely untouched by this entire new nuke that I have open here, and I could yet even go ahead here and open a Maya and just launch Maya and start playing around with Maya. Why not? Because I like to play around with things. And continue telling you the same thing. I still have almost no usage on my machine, and I have almost no usage on my internet. As a matter of fact, while we've been here, while we've done this entire video, you can see that I've only did a peak at around 4 megs a sec, and I had another peak at around 5 megs a sec. So while this entire thing happened, I only reached 5 megs. Now, my internet reaches 30. That means I'm way behind. Like my internet is more than enough to allocate this, and I'm pretty sure pretty much every business house can do that. Now, this is really exciting for me, because I believe that this, I've been working remotely for years, ever since I left the mill. So for me, this is like a godsend. I feel like this is really the future of working, because I'm really tired of upgrading machines. I'm tired of having to run like Mac Pros and running Linux machines and running Windows machines to render. If I could just run everything through a browser, it's perfect. Now, of course, keep in mind, not all is perfect, of course. I'm still missing a few things. I really need the keyboard to have a Mac version, but I think that's simple. I really need the gizmos. I really need the plugins. That's fine. I really need this to be proper 10-bit, because I only use a 10-bit monitor at the moment. I'm running my desktop at billions of colors, because I'm using a BenQ 4K monitor with 10-bit. So I wish that this browser was in 10-bit. I don't think it is. The Foundry told me that it wasn't. I'm just going to go ahead and open Maya here. So for me, for color correction, accurate jobs, it's really not enough. But for me to just do shots and just render shots and then continue working locally with other shots, it's perfect. It's a great way of changing my workflow. My workflow is all through Dropbox, and I have artists all over the world. So this is a really great way to do it. So as you can see, this is Maya. And like I said, Maya is all running here. We can start doing things to it. Sorry, just going to put, as you can see, we can start working on Maya, and we still have this one running. It's taking 6 minutes now. And we also have this one caching. These were caching from Dropbox Live, so of course they're going to take a bit of time for them to load. Once they load up, though, they will play in real time, believe me. So for me, like, in a point of view of pros and cons, I think the pros is ultimately this is definitely the future of you having all these visual effects applications on demand. You can just log in. You have all of your, you can distribute these to your users. They all have your files because you've copied them in advance. They can just run Nuke through a browser. They can run Nuke through, like, you know, a Pentium 3 if they could, but they can run a Nuke through a really shitty laptop if they want to. It can run anywhere because the power is really not on this machine. So that's a really big plus. Also, like, I think the interface is really slick. I think this is really, really well made, and the whole thing is so easy to... I didn't even need to read the manual. I just jumped in immediately. I think it was great. But as always, there's of course a few downsides for me. It's not really downsides. It's just that I have a very demanding... Because I have a proper remote pipeline, so I have a lot of demands that I don't think normal people do. I can't really work with this without having dual monitor support, for example, which is going to come, but it's not there yet. I need to know that this is a 10-bit display on the browser, but I already was told by the Foundry that that could be fixed as well. You know, I really need to have an SDI out so I can play it back in real time, but that's really not going to happen until internet goes faster. And for the moment, I think this is really suited for you to do shots, and then you still have to have an editorial suite like I have so you can gather the shots. So this is really promising. Now, there's other things, of course. I wish that the file browser was a bit more robust. It would be nice to have a proper file browser, or maybe even try to have Dropbox Sync tool actually installed in the actual machine. I also hope they have more applications. I'm sure they will, because this is just the beginning, of course. Let's just have a look at this render here. It's gonna... Oh, whoa. I had a crash there. Maya crashed, just closed with me. So this is going to take 4 minutes. So that's pretty much it. I don't think I'm going to spend much more time. This video is already way too long. I just wanted to give you like a little first impressions. So I'm going to do a full review of this in a couple of videos as well. I think I'm going to do is... I'm currently doing an actual real project where I'm using Elara as a backup to do a few shots, and I just want to see how it works, because since I already have a remote pipeline already, it's really good for me to test this. So I'm going to do a full review using real shots. I'm also going to do a full review of how it operates and how you can work with it. And that will come in the next few weeks, probably maybe a month after I test more things. So I really hope you've enjoyed this video. One last thing I wanted to show you is just once this is rendered, might as well before we go, I'm just going to show you that really quickly. So just so you know, the render that I've just made, of course, I can just go into my file browser and copy it back into my Dropbox. So that would be the way to do it. So once this is rendered, this is, of course, still rendering. It's about 2 minutes left, but it already has 57 frames done. I'm going to open up my file browser. I'm going to jump into my... I rendered it. Where did I render it? I think I rendered it in tests. Yes. I need to go check. Where did I render this? I rendered it in... yes, tests. Yes, sorry. So I rendered it in test, and it's here. Yeah, that's right. Version 9. So you see, if I now copy all of these EXRs, I can just basically do a copy, and then I can go back into my file system. I can go back into my Dropbox. And let's say I'm just going to make a new folder here. I'm just going to make just going to literally make it as a new folder. Why not? So new folder has been created. I go here and now I paste all my EXRs. And now my EXRs are now being moved from the Elara machine into my Dropbox. Of course, this is what I mean. Like, currently, I don't work this way. I don't have to do this. I don't have to copy anything because my entire pipeline is a custom pipeline using Dropbox. So I have to do nothing. It all kind of gets copied and synced automatically. And so I wish that they do that. I wish that they would have some kind of Dropbox sync tool or a similar thing, but I'm sure that's possible also to do it in Python as well. The same way the same way I've constructed a pipeline, a remote pipeline. Maybe someday a video could be done for that, because I really want to show you my pipeline as well. Since I think a lot of people have asked me that, a lot of people over the years have asked me, oh, I really wanted to know how you work, because I knew you work remotely and you've been working remotely for 3 years. I really wanted to know how you do that. And so I think a video should be done. I should do a video actually showing you guys exactly how I've set it up. I've done it on keynotes. I've presented it on festivals, but if I put it on YouTube, then all of you guys can watch it. But I'm just talking and talking and talking, yapping and yapping. I'm sorry about that. So if I now go into my Dropbox, of course I have Dropbox paused right now. It's paused because we were doing this video. I didn't want to interrupt, but if I go into the browser of Dropbox, if it wasn't paused, it would have been already here. But if I go here into my new folder, you can see that these are all the EXRs that we've rendered just a minute ago. So this was the Katana version 9, which is the Katana that's rendering here, which is the version 9, as you can see here. So you see, it's still kind of a lot of things to be, a lot of steps. You have to move files in, you have to work live, and then you have to move files out. But man, this is a start. I think this is really promising. I'm really excited about this. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. I'm really excited about this product, so that's why I can't shut up. But I hope you've enjoyed this video, and as always, if you guys want to check out more of my work, you can always follow me on Twitter at Hugo Sigara. And of course, please support me on Patreon. I'm actually going to show you this really directly. So if you guys want, just go ahead into Twitter and follow me at Hugo Sigara. That's Hugo Sigara for Twitter. Of course, if you guys want to also support my channel, and I would really appreciate if you would do that, you should go on to Patreon, where you can go to Patreon / Hugo's Desk. So the full address of my Patreon is, as you can see here, patreon.com Hugo's Desk. And if you could support me, even if it's just with $1, it would really help for me to make more of these videos, because of course I'm a busy man. I am always very busy directing and supervising projects. So the more I can concentrate on Hugo's Desk, the more videos you'll get. So if you guys have the money to do it, please share with me, and let's get more content in. If you guys don't have, that's okay as well. You can always wait for the video to show up on YouTube for free. That's always going to happen. The biggest advantage of being a Patreon supporter is because in Patreon, you get the videos before everyone else. It's just like this video. Usually you get the videos weeks ahead. So, and you also can work with, you can be on Q&As with me. You can be on Skype calls with me. You'll have contact with extra videos that are not normally visible on YouTube. All sorts of things that will happen in Patreon. So thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you guys on the next Hugo's Desk.